Back with another one. ESC Pod, tuned in. It's your host, Quabina. Here with my brother right here.
Co-host Don.
And joining you guys, Ben Steiner, Sports Illustrated and the Northern Football Podcast. Thanks for having me on today. It's exciting with the lead up to the World Cup, like just days away now.
For sure. So in this episode, we're going to get into some Canadian soccer topics. We're going to get into the infrastructure, nitty gritty, talk about World Cup prediction, World Cup expectations, and a little bit of NSL soccer too.
Back with another one, guys. It's your host, Don, with the EFC Pod. Today we have...
Quabina, I'm back here again.
And we have a special guest, Ben Steiner. How are you today?
Not too bad. Exciting times for Canadian soccer.
Yeah.
We got the roster dropped just recently. And I mean, now we actually know the 26 guys that are going to go to the World Cup.
Yep.
Who knows whether those 26 guys are going to be healthy? There's a lot of doubt within that team. But we know the 26 guys that are going to go to the World Cup. The TSN show was tremendous, unveiling it. Some of the songs that have come out from Canada Soccer's project and Boy Wonder have been good, the recent ones. So, like, it feels like World Cup vibes now,
For sure. I was actually telling him, I'm like, or a few other people as well, like, a lot of people are like, I'm not feeling, I'm like, you just have to wait until it's a couple of weeks out. They're out.
It's North America, man. Like nothing in North America gets big until it happens.
You know, we like hype here. We like hype here, so you're right.
Like, and I mean, in Canada, like the Canadiens make the Stanley Cup run, and so much attention is going to them. The World Cup is not yet leading the sports radio shows, the sports news. Like, it's still been the Canadiens. They're out now, so what's the next big thing? It's the World Cup.
Now
we have the roster.
They'll get the airtime now. They'll get the airtime.
It feels a little bit more realistic now.
Yeah.
Before we get into the soccer and the roster and like your story and stuff, you like hockey, right?
I grew up a hockey fan first. I wasn't a soccer fan until I was like 10 years old or so. At that time, I couldn't tell the difference between Man United and Man City.
That's crazy.
Like, I had no recollection and no familiarity, not a fan of soccer at all until I was about 10.
That's insane. But hockey-wise, who do you support?
Vancouver Canucks.
I have a comparison, though. I want to see if we're right, because you're a soccer fan now, right?
Oh, diehard, yeah.
Diehard soccer fan? Okay. So, Mitch Marner reminds me of like Iniesta. Is that fair to say or no?
Yeah, but Iniesta was like, he won a lot, right? Like,
Mitch Marner has no silverware.
Like Marner's probably going to win a Stanley Cup this time
year,
around.
yeah.
And so, congrats to him. But like, by the time Iniesta was like Marner's age, at least, like nearing 30, like he had lots of things on his resume already.
You're right.
And he played with, I mean, soccer is not as equal as hockey can be because, you know, with the level that Barcelona dominates Spain and was able to dominate Europe. And how Spain did in World Cup Euro, like the just absolute dominance. So I could see the similarity of player, but he won stuff. Mitch Marner's not a winner yet.
That's fair. He had one more shout. I think you should hear this before we transition.
I said Austin Matthews. He reminds me of Harry Kane a little bit, you know?
Big forehead.
A
little bit of a strange guy, but he can score
goals.
He
goals. Tottenham Kane too, because the silverware was not there too. But you know, the production is there.
And Matthews is gonna get traded now, so and then he's gonna go win a cup.
Exactly. So those were kind of the cross similarities that we were actually talking about yesterday. We're like, we gotta bring it up to him.
Sure.
So that's why we wanted to like kind of intro with that. But with that being said, before we get into the Canadian team, Canadian soccer, and kind of the landscape, because everything's changing, I think you started off with something that was very interesting, and this is how I know the game's changing. You said that you grew up with your first love as hockey, and now the love for soccer has changed. So what was your first like interaction with soccer, and like how has it led you down your career as a writer, journalist?
Yeah. So for me, soccer came from my granddad. Like he had roots in Scotland, and there was never really. I played soccer when I was little, but I was never a big fan. It was always hockey. Like I'm a young little Canadian boy. Like it's all I could think of. And I ski raced for a while as well, and I couldn't play competitive hockey because my family was skiing on the weekends. But then the Whitecaps joined MLS in 2011.
Yeah.
And my granddad got us season tickets. And since then, it's just my soccer love has grown. It used to be that I had to answer a multiplication question to go with him to the games because I was terrible at math. I still am terrible at math.
Me too.
But I had to answer the question, and then once I got the question right, he would bring me along to the game. I think he probably would have brought me if I got the question wrong as well,
Yeah.
or fed the answer to me. But was able to go to games with him all the way up until last year, from 2011 to 2025 with Whitecaps, and he died in March, so he missed Thomas Muller signing with the club. He missed the MLS Cup run. He's missed all the relocation stuff. So I don't envy him going through the relocation stuff with the club that the two of us loved. But he wrote about the Vancouver Whitecaps in his own obituary, which he wrote as well. So that is, soccer was a family love for me at first.
Yeah.
And it really only came to me when I was about 10 years old when the Whitecaps joined MLS. And that's the changing picture of the soccer in this country, right? Like, if it wasn't for the Whitecaps in MLS, I probably never would have come around to
that's
soccer.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Bro, that is such a crazy story.
nuts.
Because, like, honestly, first off, my condolences. But that is such a crazy story because for me, for instance, it's like you're gonna figure out more about me now, both of us now. I was telling someone the other day in our last guest, Jordan Hamilton, that like I always tell people like my passion is for Toronto FC. Like my Europe club is Man City, but I played for TFC Academy. So once I played for the academy, the love for the club is just different. So to hear you have the same thing in a different way for the Whitecaps makes me really know that the sport that I love is growing in this country.
for sure.
And the cool thing with just like MLS as well, like it has always been trying to be Showtime, and now it actually is Showtime.
Yeah.
Like, it's a top 10 league in the world. You can debate it's top 8, top 7. I think in a few years with the schedule change, which I know we'll get into, it could be top 5 and rival some of the best leagues in Europe. But we've had good pro soccer in our backyard for going on 20 years now with TFC. And for me with the Whitecaps, and the reason I couldn't get into soccer before was growing up in Vancouver, you had to wake up at 5 a.m. to watch the Premier League.
Yeah.
I never thought
Pacific
about
time.
that.
Yeah,
So
Pacific time.
there was no soccer really to watch unless you were diehard to it, and maybe you had parents that got up and watched Arsenal in the morning and stuff like that. It worked out well for Champions League nights because that was at noon, and we would watch that at school lunch. But there were to me, it was that connection with a club that you had to feel.
Yeah.
And if I'm supporting a team that's 3,000 kilometers away, then I feel no connection to that club, especially if you can't go out with friends and watch it. You don't have the community around it.
Yeah.
Maybe like my granddad didn't support a team in Europe either. Like, he was Whitecaps, 86ers, like the whole show from 1970. So to have that local connection, I think has been so important to Canadian soccer. We're seeing it now with the CPL, League Ones, or I guess like Premier League Canada now. And that's why it would suck if the Whitecaps and CF Montreal had to close up shop and move south.
I know.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that, but maybe we can get into that later in the show in terms of like what that kind of would look like. But I want to know, like, journalism. Like, for you, was it something that you studied in school? Was it just something that you gravitated to? Was there anybody that you looked up to? Because to be honest, like me, I didn't really like the Canadian media space. I'll be completely honest with you. I felt before the present, there wasn't really anybody who I put it like this. My alerts on Twitter or X wasn't on. Now I have a man like Ben. Anytime
I got the
alerts.
I see the articles right away. I see the SI.com, the Sports Illustrated. I see it right away. I'm like, okay, let me read it. Let me give it a read.
So yeah, talk about your journey into journalism. I would love to learn more about
I would
that.
definitely love to know about that.
Yeah. I mean, I never really thought of doing anything else than journalism. When I was 9 years old, I started printing off this thing called the Vancouver paper, where it was a PowerPoint presentation that I printed off, got my dad to like print it off at his office and bring it home. And then I'd hand it out to my class the other day, and it would be like the Canucks score and the Whitecaps score. And it would be just like local garbage pickup, like the most random things. And from that point, I never really thought of doing anything else with my life. And when it came to, high school, I started writing for the school paper. I started a blog writing about the Whitecaps and the Canucks. And then I kind of wiggled my way into doing some stuff with the minor league baseball team in Vancouver and going to the Jays. And then it came time to university, and TMU was offering a sport media program. I was like, the perfect program for me. I go there. It kind of lines up with Canada's rise in soccer.
Yeah.
Which has been nice. I mean, the year before Canada won the World Cup bid. So it feels kind of like full circle that the first game is going to be in Toronto as well. but I never really thought of doing anything different. And it's strange to me now because I have all these friends that are, mid-20s, and it's the first World Cup where not in school and you're not, skipping class to watch the World Cup all day. And so these guys are like, yeah, I can't watch the World Cup. Like, I'm at work. I'm like, doesn't even click to me that these guys can't watch the World Cup because my life is all World Cup. I'm like, I'm going to watch all 104 games or however many there are. And like, that is my job to do it. So I've never really thought of doing anything else. Like I did a lot of stuff in hockey before. I did a lot of stuff in Canadian university sports. I think I went to 10 different U Sports championships across the board.
Wow.
Like some middle of nowhere places. But
can you let us know some of those places?
Wolfville, Nova Scotia.
What did you say?
Wolfville.
Wolfville.
To cover the 2021 University Men's Hockey Championship.
That's real OT, real OT.
Trois-Rivières, Quebec. There's like Prince George, BC.
Wow.
And there's places like York University is a grind to get to
For sure.
From downtown Toronto. And I spent a lot of time at York Lions Stadium and Canlan Ice Sports and a lot of those random places. Taking it, the amount of time I spent in Oshawa was unreal with Ontario Tech. And so I spent a lot of time around Canadian university sport. You could make mistakes there in journalism, right? Like if something was wrong, okay, it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I graduated and moved on, you kind of move on to things that are a little bit higher stakes. And now we're talking about a World Cup. I've worked on a couple Olympics. So it never really felt like a job. And it still doesn't really feel like a job as hard work as it is. But it still doesn't really feel like a job because at the end of the day, I'm watching sports for my work.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Also, just a question. How did you actually get to working as a writer for Sports Illustrated? Like, how did that come about?
Just knowing people.
Yeah.
I also work with Major League Soccer, and one of the folks at Major League Soccer knew a guy at SI. SI went through some different ownership changes as well as it kind of battles with the modern media space. And everything kind of fell in line that I was going to write North American Soccer at SI. And over the last, year and a half that I've been working with them, I've kind of been able to get a little bit more leeway in what I want to do. We figured out what content works, what content doesn't work. It's going to be complicated with AI in the future. I think everyone in the media space is a little bit fearsome of that, especially with the way Google is going to change and just web hits are going to change. And that's how revenue is made for a lot of websites. But everything, it just comes down to relationships. And I guess I built some decent relationships with people, and it led me to covering the World Cup for SI.
On the topic of journalism, was there anybody that, like in Canadian media or not in Canadian media that you looked up to kind of grasp inspiration from?
There's been a lot of people kind of just within the media space.
Okay.
Initially, it was radio hosts and broadcasters because my initial dream was like I wanted to broadcast the NHL.
Okay.
And so like Dave Randorf was one of the guys. I think he's doing the Tampa Bay Lightning local play-by-play now. Jim Houston was another guy that called hockey games. And Peter Shad was calling the Whitecaps games when I was growing up. And he actually gave me an opportunity to call some BC Soccer provincial championship games.
That's dope.
Really good.
And I did a terrible job. I was 18 years old. I was battling an eating disorder. I had anorexia for a number of years. And like I had to leave early, and he gave me quite the talking to about it. But learning moments early in a career. And then in terms of writing, like I looked up to a guy, and I now call a friend, in Devin Haru at the CBC, and just the ability for him to tell a story, especially in the Olympic space where athletes don't get a lot of the attention.
There's not a lot of coverage.
I learned that doing it on the U Sports space, translated that into working a couple of Olympics with the CBC, worked the last Olympics with SI, and now the World Cup.
So
that's really dope.
On the topic of the World Cup, as you mentioned yesterday, the roster
It's all on my mind right now.
It's fresh.
First off, any surprises for you in the roster?
The roster's a weird one because with the way it works, you can replace an injured player up to 24 hours before the first game. You don't actually have to submit the final roster until, end of the day on Monday, on June 1st. And that creates a lot of challenges with the roster because if you named, say, Jaden Nelson to the roster, he's healthy. Jacob Schaffelberg is not healthy. He wasn't participating in a lot of team training this week in Charlotte. if you name Jen Nelson to the roster, then you need the wording is you need a bona fide injury to make that change in the lead up to the first game. Okay, you don't want to be kneecapping a guy on the roster to put a guy on the roster. Like Alphonso Davies is not ready to go. He's not going to be ready to go for that first game.
Yeah.
But you're going to put him on the team because you don't want to be saying, okay, we've got to injure a guy somehow to take him off the team so Davies can get on.
Yeah.
And so there is some fluidity and strategy within picking the roster. But at the end of the day, we're talking about players 24 to 26 on the team.
Yeah.
26 player roster, only 20 players played for Canada in Qatar. Really, if you're getting down to like Joel Waterman at center back, you're probably done for anyways. So I mean, Joel's a great guy. Like I've known him well since his U Sports days, but like
he's the fifth choice.
He's fifth choice. Yeah,
he's like very much the fifth choice.
Yeah.
And so if you're getting down to that point, it's tough. So I think there were 23 tap-ins for Jesse Marsch to name to his squad.
I agree.
And then, okay, you can quibble with Ralph Pariso's not on the team. Okay, like still think he makes it because one of those defenders won't be able to go. You can remember back in 2022, like Junior Hoylett wasn't able to get on and Joe Waterman stepped on to that team.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be a like for like. Jacob Schaffelberg, maybe Jaden Nelson goes in there.
Yeah.
So there's still some fluidity to it. So I'm not like steadfast with this group just yet because there's so many doubts.
No, for sure.
But you've got to be excited for a lot of these players.
For sure.
Like Promise David getting back into the mix.
I'm really happy.
Very,
he was
very
able to
excited for
get
that.
Canada's going to love him.
Yeah,
It's
very
true,
excited
it's
for
true.
that.
Hopefully he actually plays. But getting into that, yeah. Fingers crossed. So the roster is out. So what are your expectations for Canada?
I have battled with this in my mind since 2018. I mean, there's 13 guys that played a World Cup before.
Mm-hmm.
There's 13 guys that have played big games before. Like Marcelo Flores is going to play for a CONCACAF Champions Cup title in
tonight.
better atmosphere than most of those Canada home World Cup games.
Yeah.
You're going to be. Because as much as it'll be special, there'll be pressure. The crowd is not going to be the hardcore soccer fan. It's going to be go Canada, go. It's going to be very supportive. I don't think it's going to be very scary for these players to play in, and the pressure is not the same as if it was a home World Cup it's a home World Cup for Mexico, and that pressure is very different than what Canada and the US are facing.
For sure.
But in terms of expectations, like they've got to make it out of the group.
Agreed.
I think it's silly to be looking at maybe, if we finish second, we can get a better draw. Third, we can get a better draw. Like third place, there's a chance you play the US in the round of 32. And I think Canada probably beats the US in that scenario. That game would be in the US, but like you don't want to play that.
You don't want to play that game.
You control the controllables in a tournament like this. So go win the group. Like I think Canada is fully capable of winning the group.
Yeah.
The question is they haven't really showed up in big games before.
For sure.
And even the biggest game that they showed up in was a tight win over Venezuela, and Jacob Schaffelberg scored that goal at Copa America. So that gave so much confidence and maybe a ballooned sense of confidence for the group. Because if they made the quarterfinal of the Copa America, sure, you did better than the US, but it's not the semifinal against Argentina at MetLife, which will host the World Cup final. And so part of me is like, got to win the group. Anything else than that is a disaster, especially because you've got that round of 32 and potentially round of 16 in Vancouver.
Agreed.
And part of me is like, just get out. Like play a knockout game of the World Cup. Heck, tie a game. But I think it's disaster if they don't make it out of the group. I would say expectation is round of 32, and then I would be exceedingly happy with round of 16. Okay. And there's a pathway, somehow, some way, that if everything goes right, which is the name of the album that Boy Wonder has put out, if everything goes right, I can see a quarterfinal.
Oh, a quarter? I thought you were going to say semis.
I don't think semis.
I called semis.
I saw that. The thing is, like, I think you need a luck to get to a quarter.
I agree.
And then your luck runs out at some point. Like, you're going to need probably a bit of luck to get through the round of 32.
Yeah.
Probably, like, you can play a good game against, I don't know, like an Egypt type team in the round of 16.
I think Canada could beat Egypt.
Yeah, they probably can. And Egypt's best player is Canadian anyways. Omar Marsch. And then you get to a quarterfinal, and then you're like, okay, here's Spain.
Here's like the real...
Like you get to the
but
teams
it's
where
one game.
Yeah, but you've said it's one game from the round of 32.
The whole knockout format is one game, bro.
I mean, you could even say like Bosnia and Canada. That's a tight matchup.
It's a very tough game.
But it's
Not
one
much-
game, and Canada should
it's
be
true,
like
it's true.
from the other than the Qatar game. You're saying like it's one game.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
like you can only say that. I've watched enough soccer and enough sports that you can only say it's one game until like you reach one of the okay, yeah, it's one game, but like Brazil and Neymar's back at this point or something like that. Like your luck runs out. And the quarterfinal would be the first game out of Canada as well. So if they win the group and then they get 2 home games, yeah, I can see them exiting against. I mean, if they win the group and there's 2 home games, Portugal is the likely lineup in Vancouver, and I don't know if they win that game.
Tricky game, you know.
Yeah. So round of 16, I'll put that as an
your-
expectation and what I'd be happy with.
So, question for you: as you've been watching this team develop, I think we've all seen it grown. I'm gonna ask 2 questions. The first one's gonna be, what's the biggest difference you've seen with this team under Marsch compared to Herdman? And then the second one is gonna be, where do you think this team? We all know the team lacks goals. Where do you see that coming from in a Jesse Marsch system?
2 words: Marcelo Flores, because I think he plays in the midfield, and I think from his little flashes of brilliance and nifty dribbling, sure he hasn't showed the finished product in his very limited minutes for Canada yet, but I think that element in midfield, either alongside Ismael Kone or Stefan Estacio, who I think will start that first game in the 4-4-2 in the middle. But then I think that switches, or late in the game you bring in Marcelo Flores because he's going to be able to unlock that.
In the center, you're saying?
In the center.
You know what's so crazy about what you're saying, Ben? I went to the first game with this guy. The game where Marcelo was playing here in Canada. What game was it?
Iceland.
Iceland or
Yeah.
Tunisia? You're at Tunisia.
I went to Tunisia.
Yeah.
I
The
never
rain
Iceland.
game against
Yeah,
Tunisia.
yeah. Anyways, I watched the Iceland game too, whatever. But he said to me when we were watching the game, he's like, yo, I actually think Marcelo should be playing in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
And I was just like, looking at it, I was like,
Yeah.
bro, that could work.
His strengths are not best used out wide. Like if you look at a prototypical wide player under this coach and in general, it's like for Canada, it's like it's just up and down, up and down. But he's more in between the lines, right? Gets to play in the pockets.
It's the tall, lanky guys, and that's not what Marcelo Flores. Like it's like Jacob Schaffelberg just bounding,
For sure, that's it.
like a sprinter.
Sprinter,
It's
100 meters.
Ali Ahmed, who's like incredibly skinny but incredibly skilled.
Yeah.
and it's impossible to catch him. It's Alphonso Davies. It's the
Yeah, you're
power
right.
of Tejon.
You're right.
It's the that's the wingers on this team, and there's depth there. But for Flores, I think the opportunity is there to really change the game
I
from
agree,
the
from the center
midfield.
of the park.
And we don't know how fit Stefan Estacio is going to be. He's missed time with LAFC this year. Ismael Kone is exceptional. I think he plays every minute at the World Cup. But I see a world where Ismael Kone and Marcelo Flores are playing, maybe not starting, but playing from halftime. And then that double pivot of Kone and Estacio, which I think is by far the best Canada can offer, is that double pivot. Nathan Saliba can offer a little bit more going forward as well. But I think the goals come from like a little bit of skill from Nathan Saliba, incredible skill from Marcelo Flores, and then Canada has guys that can score, and Kyle Aaron can score goals now.
Yeah, you can.
It's wild to say because there were points where Kyle Aaron wasn't gonna make the World Cup squad.
I know.
And now, I mean, 9 goals in I think 12 games for Southampton.
Yeah.
Who knows how much spying played a role in that, but he's at least hit the back of the net.
He's heading into the World Cup in good form.
Yeah. And Promise is coming back, and he has 3 goals in
sure.
like I think 300 minutes for Canada. Like it's exceptional. So and Jonathan David, like he'll score penalties, and we know what he is with the Canadian national team.
Yeah. And then what's the biggest difference between Herdman and Marsch that you see from this team?
They live up to their talk with Marsch, I find. Like they talk about being intense, high pressing, like everything that Marsch is all about, and they actually go out and do it. Whereas with Herdman, there was like all this confidence. There was, the sword that they like stabbed into the pitch before games, and I think that got detained when they tried to bring it into Qatar. Like there were a lot of like silly brotherhood things.
With
Herdman. They had a literal like sword that they would all come together before the game and stab it into the field.
I remember the story.
the story.
They try to bring it to Qatar International.
Yeah, they
traffic it.
I think they had some trouble in Qatar. They had some trouble in the States. Marsch doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Marsch is very intense. Like,
yeah, you can see
like
it.
his training sessions are hell.
Yeah, you can tell.
But I think Canada has the ability to play up to Marsch's ideas, and we saw that at Copa America. Does he need results to speak for it at the World Cup? Like, absolutely. But I think that will happen because this is a much better team than the 2022 team.
I agree.
It's interesting that just even segueing off of the style of Jesse Marsch. So we know that our style is very energetic, like to be intense in the press, very, very focused on when we lose the ball, we counter press, regain it as quickly as possible. Do you also think against good teams or against teams that will give us the ball, could that be a disadvantage?
I actually think it's better that we play good teams because if Canada's playing good teams, then the other team's going to hold the ball.
Yeah, and we can
and Canada can
that's what I'm on.
Counter press, win the ball back,
win the ball back, and then
go up
counter
the
right
wings.
away.
But in the group stage, like that's going to be a challenge. Like Bosnia is going to be a 50-50 game. Qatar, Canada is going to have the control of the game. I think they're skilled enough to make an impact, but they've had struggles breaking down those low blocks.
True.
And I think Switzerland's going to be a bit of a balancing act as well. But there will be phases of the game where Switzerland has more possession and is pushing up the pitch, and there will be phases of the game where Canada is trying and struggling to do that as well. And then maybe the moment comes when it's one of the Swiss moments and Canada hits on the counter.
Yeah.
But in games like that against a good team in Switzerland, you're going to have those ability to have those moments, whereas Qatar is not going to control the game at any point against Canada. And if they do, it's a bit of a disaster from a planning perspective.
Shocking performance, yeah.
So I think that having that central midfield work in a variety of ways, whether that's Saliba, whether that's Flores, I think that's most important because the strikers have shown that they can score. It's just getting those chances.
No, for sure.
And that will have to come from midfield.
Yeah, the chance creation.
Amazing.
Agreed.
With that being said, though, I want to focus on something that doesn't get the light a lot. The impact of Kevin Blue.
Massive.
A lot of people don't really even
Massive. He is the architect behind this Jesse Marsch era.
It's true.
Yeah.
I've had quite a few conversations with Kevin Blue over the last couple of years. He came on our podcast, Northern Football, selfless plug. But he's been stellar. Though Canada is not in a position to afford a coach like Jesse Marsch. But Kevin Blue initially brought together owners of the 3 MLS teams to get Jesse Marsch. Jesse Marsch's new deal is 5 families, including support from the Whitecaps ownership, who will stay on if they sell the team.
Oh, wow.
As well as the Saputo Foundation, of course, involved with CF Montreal. MLSE is no longer involved in that setup, but they do a lot for Canadian soccer in terms of hosting the Canadian Shield tournament, making BMO Field available and stuff from those avenues. But for Kevin Blue, he's been exceptionally creative to make things work. Canada soccer's not losing money in the same way it was anymore. Sure, some of that comes from it's a little bit more expensive to play youth soccer now. I think it was a $3 increase that went on registration fees, but that has made the world of difference for Canada soccer. There's now going to be an injection of federal funding to sport as well, which was heavily needed in this country, and that will help build fields and programs. But Kevin Blue has been a slam dunk.
He's been immense.
With leading this Canada soccer.
He's been immense.
And did he have any is this his first time getting involved in something like soccer? I know golf. I know golf.
He knew nothing about soccer initially. He was learning what you call the feel of the pitch. He was learning the basics, but he knew how to run a national sports organization. Did it with Golf Canada. Of course, did it in the NCAA with the major U.S. college programs. And the funding structure for a guy like Marsch is very similar to a lot of the ways that he was able to learn from the college system. So he has experience with that, but it's another level, to host a World Cup.
No, for sure.
So far, they've smashed it out of the park with it. And that's even without mentioning the One Soccer and Canadian soccer business mess that was there for a while in terms of media rights and how much money they were bringing into the national program through TV, making the games available on TV. The CPL, there was so much there that has all now been solved over the last 2 years.
Amazing. No, like
Up Kevin.
that's bro. So
Big up,
when I was
Kevin.
making notes, I was like, this is for sure somebody who doesn't sometimes get the recognition that he deserves.
For sure.
Obviously, he's gonna keep on building because especially with the national facility that they're just
they're gonna build
announced,
that.
which is gonna be huge. But also, I have a question for you. What do you think about the province of Quebec and what it means to soccer in Canada?
Ballers. There are so many good players in Quebec, and it's so critical that FC Super is there now because like they've got a pathway. We've seen it with CF Saint Laurent. They beat Inter Toronto in the Canadian Championship, and not the first time that they've shocked in the Canadian Championship. Like they scored against TFC. They gave it was a mess of a TFC team with Insigne and Bernadeschi, but like CF Saint Laurent has been exceptional. Bombito came through that club, and so to have FC Super there, like. And so committed to bringing in Quebecois players, like you have this pathway now that you didn't before. Hopefully Quebec City gets a team. Hopefully there's more teams in Quebec as well, because it seems like the talent in Quebec just outweighs.
Yeah, it's very
kind of
concentrated.
talent.
It's
It's
insane, yeah.
Except Brampton can rival it, but
Yeah.
for sure.
No, I completely agree. And on FC Supra, where do you see the CPL headed next? Like, I mean that in the sense that we're in like what, year 5? Year 8.
Year eight, yeah.
Wow. So we're in year 8. What's next for the CPL in your opinion?
I've been doubtful of the CPL since its beginning. I think any Canadian league is going to face lots of challenges. Like it is hard to run a sports team in Canada, let alone a sports league in Canada.
100%.
And a lot of that comes down to facilities and just how hard it is to build anything in this country, unless you're building a high-rise tower for apartments. And so we need stadiums. We need proper, 5 to 10,000 person stadiums, and we need better players. Like the level of play in the CPL, you go from watching an MLS match, it's significantly lower. And yes, CPL teams can press MLS teams in the Canadian Championship and the Champions Cup, but like for people to really get into it, they have to be contending in the Champions Cup. And maybe that's wild to say that like a team like Inter Toronto has to be contending with Inter Miami or Tigres or the Vancouver Whitecaps, like these big teams that are among the best in North America. But if the CPL wants to capture like the Canadian sporting interest, it has to do that. Like it has to be at a high level, because people here will always see it as minor league as long as it's below MLS. I think there is a world where Canada doesn't have any MLS teams and maybe interest goes up. But if Toronto, for example, only had Inter Toronto and say they were at BMO Field still, like people would treat it as minor league. They would be like, I'm not getting up to BMO Field to be like, oh yeah, we're playing Halifax today, let's go. Like they'll do that to be like, okay, we're playing like Philadelphia because that's a major American city. For a city like Toronto, a city like Vancouver, a city like Montreal, you need to have that kind of attraction, and the CPL isn't there. It could get there, like it's still very young, but there needs to be so many improvements. Otherwise, you're looking at something like at maximum the CFL, which is struggling itself.
Yeah.
So it's a good point you actually brought up in terms of just the ceiling of a player being higher at the CPL level to generate interest, to really, really foster the development of the league.
And the base level.
There
the
floor and the ceiling.
There's a lot of not very good soccer players in the CPL.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the pay is very low as well.
Yeah.
That's a massive issue, and like it's already losing money. The clubs are losing money, so I don't know how you solve that. But if you're not like there aren't good top tier players that are playing for $35,000 a year and like a housing stipend.
Yeah.
And so like we've seen Thomas Kublak, a good player, a goal scorer in his own right, but he is not making much in the CPL, and he has to do full-time real estate on the side as well.
Yeah.
It's not even on the side. It's full-time.
It's a job,
And so that's the reality of being a professional soccer player on the men's side in Canada. The women's side actually pays better. And so there needs to be leaps and bounds of improvement of that, and then the scale will improve.
Exactly what I was alluding to. So is it a sense of maybe it's too restrictive, maybe because it's just focused on not hemorrhaging money? So the infancy of the league, obviously, like it's still, generally speaking, it's still very, very, very like young league. Like it's still a very, very growing league and a league still in its infancy stages. But do you think that maybe they're focused on the fact that the revenue is not as consistent, so in turn that affects the roster rules as well?
I mean, nobody wants to run a business that loses money.
For sure.
And sports ownership loses money. Like unless you're the NFL, you're losing money most of the time.
Yeah.
Like the NBA teams, they don't make a ton.
Yeah.
The NHL teams lose money. They're like MLS teams lose a lot of money, but they're valued very high because of the players that are in the league and the expansion fees. They're kind of artificially inflated club values. And so the CPL is at this point where you need kind of this massive injection of funds, but who's going to give that when MLS is right in your backyard?
Yeah.
You're not playing in any of the major cities. I mean, Inter Toronto is in New York region. I guess Vancouver FC is sort of near Vancouver, like Langley. You're not playing in major cities.
Metropolitan areas,
And so you need to have the focus of a community on a team to make it even possible. Halifax, I wouldn't call it a major city, but they have a passionate fan base. They get, 8,000 a game or around that mark, where you can start to kind of see a conceivable pathway forward.
Yeah.
If MLS isn't in Canada, which I think it would be terrible if MLS isn't in Canada. Side note, like Canadians will support teams in American leagues. I don't know if Canadians support a Canadian league in the same way, especially younger Canadians, which is going to be the primary money spenders in the next few years.
No, for sure. And one thing that you brought up about your past was your ties to youth sport, right? So I wanted to ask you, it's no coincidence that CPL has affected the level of youth sports. Would you say so?
I don't know. Like there's a pathway there for sure, but it's such a small pathway as well, right? Like when you think of
there's only 14?
56 U Sports schools. Maybe it's 58 at this point. In terms of which sport you look at, but it's around like that 50 mark for men's soccer. 25, 26 players per team. Like that's a lot of players, and only the best of the best even get a sniff at the CPL. And so the U Sports level, it's actually quite good. I would put it the best of the U Sports level on par with kind of your average CPL game. But in terms of an impact, I don't know. Like there's a pathway, but there's just not so many players that have enjoyed that pathway to its extreme. Like Joel Waterman is the shining light of it. But I don't know whether it's completely changed U Sports or whether U Sports has completely kind of changed the CPL.
Yeah. Well, like I'm actually going to bring up something because you probably even know the story. The guy from Western that plays on the Whitecaps. What's his name? The center back.
Bilal Halbouni?
You know he played for Western, right?
He played for Western, yeah.
I was telling him the other, last episode, he couldn't believe me. I'm like, I played him and he was number 10 at Western.
And he went over to Europe for a bit.
Yeah.
Too. Like he played in Germany for a little while. And I think he's out for the season with an injury at this point. But that's if the players are good enough, they will make their way through. And the CPL, I don't think, has done enough to necessarily make it like a funneling system. So it's difficult to do because if a player gets a call from Germany, says, we want you to come trial for our second team, like they're probably going to go if they have the passport.
For sure.
But the CPL should have some better incentives to attract the best players from U Sports. One player that comes to mind is Sami Sebaduka. Played for York a few years ago and was exceptional.
He was amazing.
Like when it comes to baller, he was a baller at the U Sports level. And he never made it. I think he was picked in the U Sports draft by then York United, but he never signed. And now he's playing in the first tier in, I forget which African country.
Isn't it Uganda, I think, or something like that?
Uganda,
I think it's Uganda.
I'm pretty sure it's Uganda, though.
Yeah, I think you're right. But that's a guy that should be in the CPL.
No, for sure.
And if he was in the CPL, that's a guy that might have, because the CPL does have a good structure, like a developmental structure within it. That's a guy that we could be talking about Canadian national team at this point, with the level that he showed in U Sports and just how dominant he was.
Yeah.
He played with Nico Segura on that York Lions team.
Yeah.
So there's quality there, but it's just making sure it comes to the CPL. And then once it's in the CPL, being able to bring it through to the next step, which the next step is still MLS.
You know how the NCAA has done a schedule switch?
Love it.
Do you think U Sport should think about? I know we probably don't have the revenue and the resources.
Oh,
to
U Sports
it.
will never do it, but, but I would love it. The problem with U Sports is there's so many schools in Ontario, and it's impossible to play outside in the winter. So they're going to be able to figure it out in the States where they can play either games indoors and there's the money to do it, or they can kind of structure it around teams that play in warmer climates. Midwest. And there's an ability to do that, especially with the way the conferences have moved around in the last few years when it comes to, I guess, American football kind of rules the conferences, but the way soccer is followed. So I think that pathway actually works for the US. Not that it's not cold in the US, but it works more conceivably. With Canada, it would just be, there would be so many canceled games for snow.
Inclement weather.
Inclement weather. I don't think anyone's going to be playing on like the all-weather gravel pitch or anything like that. So I don't think it's really conceivable, even from a soccer perspective, without getting into the money perspective. They could do it in like Canada West and in BC, because there you're already regularly playing a winter season. Like growing up was always playing in the rain and through the winter, which it was always weird to me in Toronto that like everyone grew up playing soccer in the summer. And that's like so strange to me. Like nobody played sports in the summer in BC. So you could do it in Western Canada, but like why?
No, for sure. I was gonna say, how do you see the schedule switch in MLS affecting the MLS? Like, obviously, we all think it's better, especially for like transfers and stuff like that.
Players.
But what are your thoughts on the schedule change?
It's gonna be tough for Toronto.
Yeah,
it's gonna be tough for Montreal.
So many away games. Bro.
I mean, for Montreal, it's already becoming an issue because their initial plan was they were going to play some games at the Olympic Stadium, and now the Olympic Stadium is not going to finish their renovations because it's been too much money. That stadium was a disaster from the day it opened in terms of how much it cost, and so Montreal is now facing the problem that like they're not going to play MLS games in -25 in snow. That's Saputo. So where do you play? And maybe that there's a short timeline for MLS in Montreal with the schedule shift. Vancouver, a better climate. You can actually play outside in the winter, as miserable as 3 degrees and rain can be, but it's not really an issue. The thing is, can they build a new stadium and go through the various things that are pushing their relocation rumors as well? There's massive efforts to try and keep the team in Vancouver. And then Toronto, like, it's going to be a mix. Like BMO Field is not a fun one to be at when it's windy and raining. I can't imagine being there when it's -1 and sleet or let alone snow. And so I think TFC is going to have quite a number of away games. But at the end of the day, it's, I think 80% the same dates, and just the most important games are now going to be in potentially better weather instead of having kind of meaningless games in that better weather. So you miss out on like the June, July games at BMO, which were great, but by the time you get to August, you're already into a new season. So you're going to get some of those BMO nights in August. September, the weather's still okay. October gets a little bit cold. And you're playing through November, and then you go on the Christmas break, and then you come back in late January. So it's going to be almost 2 off seasons, which is going to be weird for a following. Like if a team's building hype and then, we're off for a month. But I think it's actually going to be better for MLS because especially with TFC's like financial commitment. Some of the stars they could sign in the winter window if they can go head to head with some of the big European clubs. Like that's going to be the weirdest thing is you're going to see MLS teams linked within the biggest stories of the transfer window because there's the financial power to do it. And there's no reason MLS teams can't be competing with Premier League teams for that kind of money.
Where do you have MLS in the top 10 leagues right now?
Probably 8.
8.
Yeah, I think it's probably around that sort of like above the Netherlands.
I think, wow, that is fantastic. Thank you. I was just about to say, it is definitely better than the Eredivisie.
Yeah, so it's around that mark. And then like, I don't watch enough of Argentina to really know where that stands.
I rank that ahead of the Eredivisie too.
Like a good league. It gets so difficult to rank. But you have the Big Five, I think, but there's lots of MLS teams that are better than teams in the Big Five. So it is more fluid, but I would say probably around that 8 mark with the potential with the new schedule and the transfer window and all the things MLS is trying to do. Like there's no reason why it can't be top 3 in 20 years.
For sure.
I hear you. Agree with that.
Other than the American public accepting MLS as an elite
league. Elite league.
Like nobody's going to, and Europe as well. Like nobody's going to be like, oh yeah, the Philadelphia Union, like they are on par with
Yeah.
right?
For sure. I actually, following up on that, how knowledgeable are you about like Canadian agents? Like, do you know about that type of side of the game or not really?
A little bit. I speak to a few every now and then about players and kind of the pathway of Canadian soccer. It's definitely interesting to see where things are leading to.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few agencies that manage basically. I think it's 3 or 4 agencies that kind of manage the national team.
Yeah.
On the men's side, and that has created issues with some players and their clubs and where they go for transfers. And Marsch has tried to kind of pick places for players to go, and agents maybe don't like the places that he picks. We saw Ismael Kone at Marseille. That didn't go well with Roberto De Zerbi.
Yeah.
He finds a better situation. So I don't want to name names, but
no, I get what you're saying.
There's a very few number of Canadian agents that represent Canadian players, and it's basically all the guys on the national team.
So that was gonna lead me to my question: where do you think, when you look at like some of like these youth products, I'm talking about the U17s, U15s, those are guys who get tied to agencies at a very early age, are receiving wrong advisory? Obviously, every situation is different, but I'm saying historically, looking at what we're dealing with right now.
You can go so deep on it, of just the influence of agents, the influence of club licensing deals. I think Roma sponsors St. Catherine's.
Yeah, St. Catherine's, Roma, yeah.
And there's other setups like that. I think
TFC, all
there's one that's Waterloo, I think.
Dortmund.
Dortmund, Waterloo. Like that is, there's no pathway from Waterloo to Dortmund.
Yeah.
But you see that, and you're getting charged more for that. You're getting advice from people that have an interest in some commercial area of that partnership. So those clubs don't do like terrible things. Like I'm not saying like don't go play for those clubs. But there has to be some thought of like getting second opinions if you're a player that is trying to move up the ranks, and one person says this, but this person might have a connection to some sort of commercial interest. So getting like better coaching, better knowledge of the world's game, even just among the player pool, like people understanding it a little bit more. And we'll get that as the generations go on. This is really the first Canadian generation to have the commercialized soccer market, because like they've made World Cup before, but 1986 was a very different world.
Very different time.
And so it'll take that experience of this first wave of players. And you're already seeing it, like some of the advice that has trickled down from guys like Steven Vittoria and what they're suggesting to players. So you're going to start to see that a little bit more, but agents can sway people in ways that other people can't even imagine. Like they have such control over every aspect of global soccer.
No, for sure.
So it's interesting because you were talking about Jesse Marsch is kind of like a mediator in certain aspects. So
he called himself an agent at one point, actually.
I do remember that. So generally, I don't know. I'm not sure we asked about it prior, but I just had a question regarding Jesse Marsch. How do you feel about his contract extension? 4 years to 2030 now. Yeah. And also, what would constitute a successful 4 years?
Make it back to the World Cup. I think that's like the baseline.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be too hard anymore to make it back to the World Cup, considering how many CONCACAF nations get in. And there's been talk of like 63 team World Cup. Like that would be terrible.
Game's gone.
I do like 48. I think 63 is a step
just
too far.
I agree.
It's too far.
Though I said the same thing about 48. But then seeing countries like Curacao, who I've got the kid on here,
the big kid, you know,
seeing countries like Curacao and Haiti and Cabo Verde like getting into the World Cup has been cool. And I guess it would be cool to see China and India in the World Cup as well, and they will make it at some point. I think a 64-team World Cup would probably get to that point, even how much they've struggled. So make it back to the World Cup for Jesse Marsch. I think the contract extension was Canada had to sign that, because if he has a successful World Cup and there wasn't a contract, he's gone.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't think about that.
And there was also the investment opportunity that was already there, and people were willing to go on to the contract now. He's clearly got some level of progress that they're happy with the team so far, and I think everybody would be happy with sort of what they've done since 2024. So make it back to the World Cup is the absolute baseline, but then win a trophy. We've been saying win a trophy.
Gotta win
for
something, some
a while
silverware
now,
on the
and
board.
Gold Cup next year, and then you've got Nations League every year, or I guess every 2 years, and then another Gold Cup. So that's 4 opportunities to lift a trophy. And Mexico is still not very good. The U.S. is like, I mean, Pochettino is going to leave. Like, who knows whether they're going to be a powerhouse or anything. So Canada has to win a trophy, and I think that's kind of the expectation and the standard for Marsch.
I'm in agreement.
I don't know if you saw the guest we had on from the States, Gabriel. I was trying to tell him that we're for sure better than the US. Like, he didn't sway my opinion at much, but it was just crazy to see his reaction.
Yeah, it was like he was so mystified as to why we would think that. It was like
Americans really rate their team.
And a little bit too highly for my liking.
And we really rate Canada's team.
Yeah,
as well.
we do as well.
Like,
Yeah.
You look at that Canada roster and you're like, okay, every one of these guys is a contributing player because we've seen a lot of them.
100%.
If you watch a lot of the American players, and I do a lot of American coverage, they are very impressive as well.
Yeah, 100%.
The thing is, Canada's accents make you look at them as if they're like European, or it makes you look at them as if they're African or South American, and that kind of prejudged essence of that influences a lot of thoughts on the team. So like you see guys that have different accents that look different, that look kind of like the soccer players that have been the famous ones from generations past.
Yeah.
And then you look at like Christian Pulisic, who talks like an American. He's a white guy from Pennsylvania. Like, he doesn't look like your stereotypical like soccer player per se that has been sort of the historical good soccer player when you think of the legends. And so I think there's a little bit of sort of like a almost racial influence that people don't think of when it comes to Canada versus the US. And why people maybe look at Alex Freeman as lesser than Serginho Dest playing in that position, because Alex Freeman's dad played in the NFL and he is an American born and bred. And Serginho Dest was from the Netherlands. Has a bit of an accent, has a little bit of a, like, maybe more style or a different approach. Like, I think there's a little bit of that influence.
Yeah, there's some undertones there for sure.
On the undertones, that was the word I was looking for. On the judgment between Canada and the US. But then you go player for player, and you can kind of coin flip on a lot of them.
Yeah, it's not far off. That's exactly what
they're very similar. The thing is, the US has a higher ceiling.
For sure.
Because there are so many more athletes that will come through the US. And Canada, maybe number 25 is our ceiling. But with the US, like, there's a world where they could be number 1. If things became right and maybe less commercialized in US youth soccer, like, there's a real chance that the US could be a dominant team, whereas Canada's never going to be a dominant team in world soccer. Like, we're looking at, can we be a Switzerland, a Norway, teams where there are world-class players, and some of the best players in the world, maybe you can make a semifinal of the World Cup on, if you host a World Cup, hopefully this summer, then you can make a real impact. But the US has a chance to be going with like Spain and England and Brazil and those world's best teams, whereas Canada just, by sheer population size, is not going to be within that world power. But at this point, like, is Canada worse than the US? I don't know. Like,
I wouldn't say so. Yeah. And that's actually a good point you bring up, because definitely if the infrastructure in American football was more specialized on football, I do think that they can be a superpower. But do you think that's also part of the reason why there's, I wouldn't say an overhype per se, but there's a certain level of support that they have for their team?
Probably. Americans are just really proud of their country as well,
really
right?
patriotic.
It's the most patriotic country in the world. I hold an American passport. I was born in New York City. I'm more patriotic towards Canada than I am the US, but the Americans just love their country, and the players are American through and through, most of them. And it's easy for a lot of people to see their representation on the American team. So with all those factors, and the fact that, like, Pulisic just won a Champions League. Sure, he hasn't scored in 20 games going into the World Cup, but like, he could be a star of the World Cup. You look at Balogun and his level that he hit in France this year, or I guess Monaco if you want to get political. But the US is just really proud of their team, and they're a good team. But are they leaps and bounds better than Canada? No, I think it's 50-50 on any day.
Yes.
Yeah, no, for sure.
agree.
And I want to bring it back to Vancouver, the Whitecaps. Over the last couple of years, we've seen probably they are the best MLS team in Canada.
Best
It's
in the
been
league.
for a while. Yeah, and obviously one of the best teams in the league. Has that changed culture in Vancouver, and especially bringing in Thomas Mueller, a player of that pedigree? Like, how is it like in Vancouver when you're out there?
I mean, it's a vibe with the Whitecaps. There's not many cities in MLS where the team is the number 2 show in town. And there's, I mean, even fewer cities where it's the number 1 show in town. But for Vancouver, it's only behind the Canucks at this point. And the Canucks are like dismal. And so people are looking for a winner, and that's the Whitecaps, which makes it all the worse that it's a team that is facing relocation potential. But Vancouver soccer culture is deeply rooted. Like it started with the Vancouver St. Andrews. Even before that, it was Vancouver Columbus.
Oh, wow.
And like it goes back generations and generations. It's very British based. In 1986, most of the Canadian roster was from
Vancouver.
BC.
Yeah, BC.
It has fallen off at this point. And Toronto's soccer culture is much more diverse. Toronto's culture just in general is more diverse, and that is reflected in soccer. But in BC, like there's so many pockets that can go back. You're going on almost 150 years, like from the like creation of the sport that has been in BC. And I think when you look at soccer culture in Canada, the history that BC has in it is exceptional. And the Whitecaps have been around for almost all of it. Like they're a 50-year-old club. I guess a few years more than 50 now. But like they were the Whitecaps, then they were the 86ers, then they were minor league, and then they're back in MLS. And even if they are to move, I think the Whitecaps continue and they're a CPL team.
Yeah.
But the Whitecaps and their history and their passion and just kind of like a cornerstone of Vancouver's identity makes it a really cool time when they're winning.
No, for sure. And there's 2 things I want to say on the back of that. One, it's so cool seeing Sandin, like the hockey player, his kid.
It's Walter Sedin. He's playing. He came to the Whitecaps Academy. I used to have this little dog and his little toy poodle, and I would walk him, and we'd go watch the Whitecaps Academy games. And Ray Ferraro's kid was playing for the Whitecaps Academy at the time, and Walter Sedin was playing. And so you had Ray Ferraro, Cami Granado, Henrik, and Daniel, and their partners standing watching the Whitecaps Academy games in BC. I'm like, this is like some of the best people to ever play hockey. and how's this happen? So, I mean, Walter Sedin's now on the Canadian, I think, U20 team. He was on the U18 team a couple of years ago. Of course, he's a dual national with Sweden. And so we'll see where it gets to that point. But it's cool to see some of those players that are like coming through the Canadian system and they're not playing hockey.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was getting
Facts.
to. What position does he play?
I think he was a midfielder when I was watching him.
Okay.
But it's still so fluid. When they're so young, like unless you're a striker or a goalkeeper, like you can be thrown wherever because some coach sees you as an option for a center back. And like
100%.
Bombito, I think, was a striker for a long time.
I could see that.
I could see definitely.
I can see that.
Running the channel. I can see that.
I think he said I recall him saying that he didn't play center back until university.
Yeah.
And he played in New Hampshire. Like,
I can see that too. You know, Americans, they like the position switch. They like that.
Yeah.
They like that.
the big fast guy is
Yeah,
you're either a striker or you're a center back.
It's the transferable qualities.
So do you think Promise David could play center back?
Yes, he
You
could.
think so?
Yeah, of course.
You
What?
think he could hold the line?
Of course. He'll crunch someone right away. Boom. For sure. I definitely think he could.
Oh, like 100%. He's like a mix of like Kamal Miller and Stephen Vittoria. Like just a unit at the back, and he's mobile.
Yeah.
Like
6'3", 6'4", you fam. Y'all getting past him, bro.
Here's a Whitecaps deep cut. The Kendall Waston was on the team. From,
that's a big shout.
Costa Rican, right?
He's a striker now.
And he made his Whitecaps debut as a striker against the LA Galaxy, I think in 2017. And then he went back to being a center back with FC Cincinnati in their expansion season. And then went to being a center back with Saprissa when he returned in a couple of years ago in Costa Rica, and he's a striker again.
Striker,
that's crazy.
And he scores goals either way because he's a target man. But he's like 6'7" or something mad like that.
That's insane. But still on topic of Vancouver, I haven't been out there yet.
Get yourself out there.
Yeah, we're planning. We're planning on making a trip. But how is it with Pacific and Vancouver FC out there? Like I'm just saying, I know 2 different clubs, 2 different locations, but how's it been out there?
Well, Vancouver FC effectively doesn't exist. In Vancouver, like Langley is 2 hours on transit away from downtown.
Oh wow!
And not even like get on the GO train type transit. It's like get on the train, get on the bus, get on another bus kind of thing.
Oh wow!
And so it's quite difficult to get out to Langley.
Yeah.
If you don't have a car, and the community of Langley hasn't like rallied around that team either. And they've not been good. So like Vancouver FC in all effects in Vancouver, it doesn't exist because people just don't know it.
Yeah.
Pacific used to be such a vibe. Like their stadium's beautiful. They used to get 5,000 a game. They used to be good. One of the best nights in Canadian soccer was the first Ferryside derby when Pacific beat the Whitecaps.
Yeah.
And that stadium was packed. It was bumping.
Who was on that Pacific team?
Alejandro Diaz was on that team.
Okay, I remember him.
He's still in the CPL.
Josh Hurd was on the team as
Josh
well.
Hurd, yeah, he's still on the team. Marco Bustos was on that
That was
team.
a good team.
It was the year they won the CPL.
Okay. So Thomas was center back, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've managed to beat the Whitecaps, and that Whitecaps team was a terrible Whitecaps team. But the that was just a monumental moment in BC and Canadian soccer.
Yeah.
It was also one of the first like cup sets in CPL history. And so to see that was exceptional. Since then, it has just been a downward spiral for Pacific. Like since Vancouver came in the league, 6-5 ownership runs both clubs, and both clubs suck on the pitch, and that has led to less people coming to Pacific games. Pacific has tried to bring the team into Victoria. Those vibes are better, but it's still not sellouts. So it's an enigmatic of Canadian soccer. Like people will support a winner, but when they're not winning, it can be kind of sad and irrelevant. And that's what Pacific and Vancouver FC are in 2026.
Wow. And kind of flipping the coin, how about the NSL team in Vancouver?
Been fantastic.
Yeah, I saw so many fans when I was watching the highlights.
The like Swangard is a beautiful night out.
It's a nice stadium though.
Like it's an old stadium, but it's right in a park in Burnaby. It's right on it's like a 20-minute walk from a SkyTrain station, which is like Vancouver's subway. So it's fairly easy to get to. Burnaby, it's very highly populated now, and there's lots of people around that are able to come to the game. And it's just a good vibe. It's beautiful. You can see the mountains, the trees. A building from TELUS that's like iconic because it looks like a boot next to a soccer stadium. And it's natural grass, and the team's good. Of course, they won the title last year.
Yeah.
And women's sports have never been more popular. Like the crowd at PWHL Vancouver Golden Eyes games is exceptional. I would say maybe the best crowd in Vancouver sports, and the Vancouver Eyes is right on par with that. Yeah.
Wow.
It's good.
So you split your time between Vancouver and Toronto?
For the most part. Like I lived in Toronto for 6.5 years. But in February I decided, okay, this snow's enough. Time to go back to BC, because BC you can be outside all the time.
I grew up
like running, skiing, cycling, like doing all the active stuff outside.
Yeah.
And Toronto's a great city, and it's a better city than Vancouver, and you can clip that. Like Toronto is a better city than Vancouver, but Vancouver isn't about the city. It's about everything else around the city and how close you are to being active and being in nature.
Yeah.
And it's enough of a city that it's still like you can go out and have a night out, but like you're not going out and having as wild a night as you are in Toronto. The places aren't as good. The culture's not as good. The music's not as good. Like there's just less of it. I mean, even FIFA Panini stickers, for example, I couldn't find them in Vancouver. So I'm coming out here for a wedding last weekend and the World Cup, and I'm like, okay, I can go to 401 games and I can get my Panini stickers.
Yes.
Right? Like, so Toronto's a better city, but Vancouver just has so much that I love. So I wanted to get back there. Yeah.
So, but how's your Toronto slang?
It's not terrible. Not terrible.
Fine, not terrible.
The thing is, like, I use it kind of in a joking way, right? Like
that's the best way to use it.
Like there's it's definitely like a part of the way people speak. I do use still fairly often.
Still, eh?
And that is like completely just brought into my speech. I say wagwan just like joking, but
That's my guy. Man.
it's not quite part of like my daily speech.
Yeah,
but like,
okay.
fair, that's
but like,
fair.
You bring it out for special occasions?
Special
Wagwan?
occasions.
Okay, okay.
Like sometimes you pick up the phone, you're like, wagwan. The thing for me though, I say a way too much. My girlfriend told me she noticed me saying a way too much, and I'm like, yeah, I do. Like when I go down to the States, people point it out, and they're like, wow, I didn't realize Canadians say a. I'm like,
It's a thing though. For
yeah.
real.
That's when I notice it though. When I go to the
When I go-
States,
yo,
is
we
when I
actually
notice
say it a lot.
yeah. I punctuate my sentences with a all the time, and you don't think of it when you're in Canada,
Yeah.
but like it's a stereotype, but it's definitely true.
true.
It's definitely true.
You said it when you were asking me that question just now.
I did, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Holy.
It's not that far off from like a lie. Or I think.
I was gonna ask you, are you on a lie guy?
I lived in Dundas and Jarvis for
Okay.
6 years, so
So a lie was trickled down into your lingo for a little bit. To be honest with you, just back to the NSL, the Vancouver Rise, or just NSL in general. Like I won't say I'm as well versed on it. I'm obviously looking to get more assimilated into the culture behind it, the actual teams. Like I already know of a couple. Like I know AFC Toronto, but like generally speaking, in terms of the progress of the league, the start point, it seems like it's a very good start point. It seems as though the finances are in order, the facilities are in order, which is good. So where do you see it ranking in terms of women's leagues potentially in the near future? Because there is a lot of foreign investment in these women's leagues. These leagues are getting exponentially better. So where do you see that?
I think it has an opportunity to be like rivaling the NWSL and the WSL in England.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
It doesn't take a lot of money to build a really good women's league, and the investment for women's sports in North America
Yeah,
has
it's
never been
through the
better.
roof.
With the
Yeah.
WNBA, we see the support that Tempo is getting in Toronto,
Yeah.
the PWHL, and the NSL. Like already in its second season, it's better paid than the CPL a lot of the time for these players. And there's just not as much competition to be a really, really good women's league.
Yeah.
In the same way the CPL faces a challenge to be a really, really good men's league. Which
Agreed.
it's never going to be. But the NSL, like, you're
of
already talking international players.
That's
winning-
what I'm about to
winning-
say. Some of
like,
the profiles.
winning
Players,
AFCON.
for
Like,
sure.
Yeah.
you're talking players on the Canadian team. Like,
Yeah.
it could be just as good as the NWSL in a few years.
Yeah. That striker on Ottawa, I forgot her name.
DB Pridham.
Yeah.
I mean, baller.
She should be more on the Canadian team, but it's the next wave behind players like DB Pridham, because DB Pridham's already sort of mid to late 20s. And sure, she can play a role on the Canadian national team, but that's not the type of player that we're talking about when it comes to like the players that need to be standing out.
So players like Kaylee Hunter. and
Exactly.
whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that next
Yeah.
wave where they're going to be in the system for a while, and then they
Yeah.
can move on to European leagues where, you know, I think the WSL in the same way that the Premier League is going to be kind of the standard bearer. And then big clubs in Spain, like we've already seen Barcelona and, and like Bonmati and what's happened with
Putellas,
Real
all of
Madrid
them,
and like the status of those clubs. Like
Yeah.
Madrid is trying to build up their women's side as well. Like hasn't quite reached the level of Barcelona, but there's efforts there. Vanessa Gilles with Bayern Munich or in Germany. So it's going to be all the same big clubs in Europe for the most part. And then in North America, like you have a chance to be in a much better point than MLS is in terms of sort of a stature of standing for the league. So I say top 3, top 5 league in the world. And
good.
I
not
agree.
so far off in year 2.
For sure.
I agree. And
really good.
now coming to like the back end of the interview, there's actually something that came to my mind. We're talking about how great the men's team has been, the Canadian men's team. But when you look at the youth teams, when it comes to the national teams, it's been rocky.
Come see, come saw.
Does it matter though? Right? Like that's the
I
part
think it
that
does.
I
battle
think it
with.
does. I think
Like,
it does.
as long as there's a few guys standing out with those teams, I think that's all you really need. Like at the end of the day, like is winning a U20 World Cup indicative of future success? Not really. Like England won it, and then sure some of those guys went on to make a Euro run, but like it's not win a U20 World Cup, win a World Cup. And so if Canada makes a run to like a semifinal or a final at U20 World Cup, like how many of those players at that age are just bigger and stronger and born earlier in the year than their counterparts? And so that's where it gets so difficult with the youth levels. And I think the more important thing is these players are now playing and learning in professional atmospheres and professional academies through the MLS teams, the CPL teams. whether they're in Europe or not.
Yeah.
And that's almost the pathway that you need more, because like, okay, yeah, there's a U20 World Cup every 2 years. Like how much does it really matter? It would be nice to win. Sure. Like it would be nice to see Canadian kids lift a trophy, but I'm not getting too hung up on like, oh, the Canadian youth teams can't win. It's like, okay,
For sure.
It's youth soccer, right?
Yeah. For me, well, I do agree with that premise for sure. I think for me, it's more so less winning, but more so just player identification, youth camps. Like I feel as though
that goes back to the Kevin Blue, right? Like that goes back to Canada Soccer
sure.
needs money to host these youth camps.
So
and we're starting to see a few more of them.
Yeah.
But like a player like Moise Bombito wasn't discovered until he was like 21.
Yeah.
Right? Like and he was playing at UNH. And so you need to find those guys earlier. And that's where the CPL comes in. Like that's why FC Super is so important.
Honestly, like you changed my view, like not fully, but like I would say that was a massive view change for me.
For sure.
Because I was like under the impression that, you know what, like we shouldn't be losing to Jamaica U17 or U15. Like I just think our players are in better environments than those players. But when I'm looking at the grand scheme of things, when you're putting all context together, you're like, you are right.
Yeah.
You are right.
It doesn't matter.
Like for sure.
As long as the guys are on a pathway and they're getting better, like, I mean, sure, go win a youth tournament.
Sure. But for me, necessarily, like I'm of similar premise. Like for me, it's not necessarily about like results at a youth tournament. Like, but it's just like the things that I'm seeing more of, which we've really, really severely lacked in the past. Like, it's putting us in good stead. So I do think that, especially with us committing to Jesse long term, like there has to be a national identity of like play style, right? So that trickles down from
and that's what's so critical about it. And he's bringing youth players in.
Yeah.
Like I mean, a bunch of youth players were in this camp in Charlotte. Like Maël Henry from Forge was there. We've seen Sholajimo in youth camps or in national team camps before.
Like
I'm sure he's had like a little bit of a fall off recently, but okay, fall off. He's 17 years old. Like he will bounce back. He's still playing professional minutes.
Yeah.
And that fact that a guy like Sholajimo is playing week in, week out with York United, training day in, day out with Inter Toronto. That is far more important than what Sholajimo does at a U17 World Cup in Qatar. As entertaining as that, I think it was a quarterfinal against Ireland was.
Yeah.
That was amazing. But like the results don't really matter.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Closing up now, and wanted to speak more about yourself. You do host a podcast yourself. Could you tell the viewers about it if they don't know?
Yeah, the Northern Football Podcast with One Soccer's Alex Gongiruzik and Canadian Soccer Daily's Brendan Dunlop, who has been
shout out
a long
Brendan.
time in Canadian soccer. First on Sportsnet with Jerry Dobson doing the Premier League and the
Craig
Fox
Forrest.
Soccer Show. So both of them have been great. We've been running the show first with Peter Galindo before that from 2020 or so. So probably the longest running Canadian soccer show focused on the national teams. I know some West Coast soccer shows as well have been around a bit longer, but that's where you can find, if you've enjoyed this podcast, you can find me podcasting
For sure.
a couple times a week as well.
Tap in.
Man, honestly, it's been a pleasure. When you first came to mind, you saw me reach out to you, DM you. I'm like, yo, we gotta bat up Ben. But like, Ben, you've been a pleasure. Like, honestly, it's been very insightful to hear from another perspective. Because I feel like we've had a lot of people involved in the game from different lenses. So this lens was for sure needed, especially with a World Cup in a week or so.
Not too long, man.
It's World Cup time. Like it already feels like it started. Like Canada Uzbekistan coming up, Canada Ireland. I'll be in Montreal for that, and then it's like okay, we're like Bosnia, and that first game. And anytime I'm covering a game, you think of all the lead up things that have to go into, like the preview pieces, the preview podcast, like all the interviews and preparation and things that go into it. That's for any game. And the ball kicks off and you're like, okay, like now it's a game, cover the game. And you're talking about 90 minutes of football. For the World Cup, like when Canada kicks off that first game against Bosnia, like that is not just weeks of preparation. That is years. Like the last 15 years of my life leading to that moment kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that'll be wild to, like, I still can't quite picture like BMO Field is hosting Canada's World Cup opener.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's going to be crazy.
It's good. Yeah.
So wait, before we close out though, like before in a game, your job, like you have a laptop and you're there just...
I'm there just watching. Like I don't really write during the game. Like I'll send off a few tweets during the game and stuff. Is I guess you'll see it since you have my notifications on. But the the like I mostly just watch it. I used to like just write the whole time and then I'd miss things, or I'd tweet the whole time and I'd miss things. So I mostly just watch and jot down notes. I have a actual physical notebook that I write in, and then you speak to. Sometimes around the 60th minute, you can start writing your kind of match report if you have to file a story just at the final whistle, which I will for the World Cup. And then you go talk to the coaches, talk to the players, and usually have like an hour or two to kind of build out a more narrative story.
Perfect. I just wanted some insight for myself because I find that very interesting.
For sure. Yeah, me, I just wanted to tell you, just to piggyback off of my co-host here, my brother, it's been a pleasure to have you. Like, very, very, very insightful, very, very refreshing to hear your lens, your view on things, and keep doing what you're doing. Like, you're breaking barriers. Like, you're really, really putting our nation, what goes on here from every level of soccer at the forefront. So pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, pleasure to come on. Thanks for having me out.
For sure.
That's a wrap.